Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
All right, another episode of A Scrap Life, and I'm sitting here with a guy I always talk about, like the power of social media, and for you to help other people, but also for people that have questions and gain knowledge. And Phil Matteson from Modern Recycling hit me up, I don't know, probably 2-ish years ago, and was like, "Hey, I'm up in Montana. I'm putting a yard in, and I'm coming through your area. I'd like to stop by and talk." And see somebody we had met on LinkedIn, and he came through, and we started shooting the shit, and we hit it off, and kind of stayed in, contact over the last couple of years. And so I was like, "Hey, you're putting a new yard in. You got your new yard in." I said, "Let's get on the podcast and talk about it, man." So thanks for coming out, Phil. I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Pleasure.
So a little bit of background on you, is you had a smaller yard, correct? Up in
Yes.
Victor.
Yes. Yeah,
And
Bitter
you guys,
Valley.
yep, and you guys decided you were gonna make the plunge, go big, right? And so if you know me, I appreciate someone that bets on themselves and kind of bets on the future, and that's exactly what you did. So why don't you give us a little background and kind of on you and kind of in modern recycling, and let's just work our way through it, man.
So partners and I started modern recycling in 2014. We kind of hatched the idea in 2011 and then finally opened the doors in 2014. And I mean, we started about as small and tight as you can start. We had a 40-foot truck scale, 2 forklifts, and that's about it. And we opened the doors, and we rented the space and we're able to get all our permits done and got it open and started building from there, and had have grown since. And then we decided that we needed to start expanding and get into Missoula. It makes more sense logistically. I mean, we're going to keep our yard in Victor. It does great. So we decided a few years ago to start looking and adding a yard there. Acquired property, had to do significant amount of dirt work on the property, built a 40 by 80 steel building, put in the yard, and we opened in April of this year. And so we've
Nice,
been
nice.
kind of grinding it out since April. Modern recycling's, we try to pride ourselves on customer service and being a good steward to the community, and having good hours and good people, and just being more of a pleasure to be around than some of the others, right? So, and I think we've done a good
Yeah.
job with that, and
So how do you,
we're
where'd you,
just grinding.
so yeah, I know that about you. I know you are. Let's go back. So you and some partners sit around 2011, you have this great, fantastic idea to get into the scrap business. And what, because you didn't grow up in this business, right? If I
No,
recall. And so where did this great idea come from? I'm curious.
so my partner Justin, he he and I started a business when we were in college together, and it was a pretty laborious business, but we didn't last terribly long. But and we kept talking, and we said we needed to do something. And he actually, there's two competitors in Missoula. There's Pacific Steel and there's Axman, and he
Mhm.
actually worked for Axman for about 20 years and started their scrapyard for them. So he called me and said, "Hey, we need to open one of these up." And I said, "Well, I'm game. Let's do it. Let's start looking at it." So we
Yeah.
we started scheming together, and
So where
putting
were you
together
working
this
at that time?
plan.
What were you doing?
So I spent 11 years in oil and gas. I
Okay.
got out of college. I got my MBA in 2008, and everything was crashing, but oil was $140 a barrel. So I went to work for Halliburton Energy Services. Another thing I had no idea about. I'd never seen a drilling rig in my life. And I found myself in the Piceance Basin out of Grand Junction, Colorado, selling drill bits to drilling rigs, and
Uh-huh.
started there, and then I moved 5 times in 11 years for Halliburton. and
Wow.
ended up, I was the operations manager for the Western United States at the end of it. Spent a lot of time in sales, and I did an engineering role, and I'm not an engineer, but did a little bit of that. But it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it. It was a great company, and it afforded me. I just scrimped and saved. I never lived above my means, and put away money to invest. And so when Justin wanted to start this idea, we started, putting the numbers together, and he's kind of the evil genius behind it. I can't take the credit for that because he put it together, and we just started small. We didn't have enough money to start a giant scrapyard, and we had to let it sit and build. And I came back about 5 years ago to the business. I got out of oil and gas and came back to Montana, which is where I've always wanted to be. I went to college here, and I came back about 5 years ago to work in the business full time. And so that's actually where, at one point there, I was driving truck, and I started listening to podcasts because truck driving is, kind of a lot of hours just sitting in a
Yeah.
seat. And so I started listening to
A lot of time
podcasts,
to
and I was
think. A lot of time
yeah,
to
a lot of
think.
time to think, and
Yeah.
so I found a Scrap Life podcast, and I started listening to him, like, man, this is pretty cool. I was like, I got to get to know this guy. I got to figure out who this guy is. And so that's when I hit you up. But I started out just doing whatever was needed within the company, and trying to help us grow. And we're doing it. We got lucky on this piece of land we bought in Missoula, and we're able to sell off a portion of it and get back some of the capital to go build the property with. And
Mhm.
so we've managed to really get ourselves off to a good start in Missoula.
So when I think about like you guys doing that, and I say this really because I want people when they listen to this podcast to get something out of it. We talk about starting yards and doing this, but I think when you said that, Justin had the idea, you guys were friends, you had worked together before, you guys probably, the way I see it, you guys, or the way I imagine it, is you guys probably are partners, but you probably play two very different roles within the business. Is that
Yes.
true? And is that, I mean, I feel like that's super important, especially at the beginning. You can't find someone that's exactly like you and sees stuff exactly like you or has the same skill set that you have, because then that doesn't give you that diversity or that basically that all aroundness that you're going to need to start a business. You got to find someone who has a kind of a different set of skills than what
Yeah.
you have, right? And I would assume that Justin's role is probably on the operations side at the beginning, just because he had been from startup and kind of helped grow one, so he kind of knew that. Or how do your roles differ, or how do you guys kind of operate your business as partners?
So it's kind of settled in. He tends to look after the accounting side more than I do. I mean, we're obviously both involved in that. So he's
Yeah.
more on the back end, and I tend to be more in the operations and
Okay.
driving the operation anymore. I tend to have an operations bend anyway. So, whatever. And then I just tend to fill in wherever
Well,
we
yeah,
have a gap,
that's a
you
given.
know,
Yeah. As a small business,
wherever
it's
I'm needed, it's like I'll
yeah.
go. And
Uh,
I guess that's one of the qualities he probably enjoys about me is I'll go wherever, whenever, and do whatever is required.
yes.
And he kind of helps steer the ship, and since he had more experience, he did a lot of the selling, and guided that
Okay.
side of scrap. And so I've been getting more involved in that, but that's definitely one of his strong suits is looking after that side.
That'd be like the
So
opposite of the way I would have thought it
yeah,
was because you were on the sales side, right? Like on the
yeah,
drill bits and tips and traveling around, and him, having saw a business from start to growth for
yeah,
20 years. I would have assumed, and I did assume that, but that's interesting. But it's still like it still goes back to it. You need someone on the operations that's strong, someone on the back end that's strong that can kind of manage that piece of it and making, finding vendors to the purchase material and looking for customers and accounts. And it's probably something you guys both do a lot of that together. But I mean, that's the beauty of when you find someone that's kind of your yin to your yang, is they kind of have strengths that you may not have, or like you may be a strength of yours, but you just don't like doing it. And you're like,
Yeah.
I would rather go be on operations and the truck driving side and just try and make shit happen during the day, you know, on a daily
Yeah.
basis versus trying to figure out where this material needs to go.
Oh yeah. It's funny on the truck driving side. Before I left Denver, I decided that's where I was as an operations manager with Halliburton last. And
Okay.
before I moved back, I said I should get my CDL just in case I need it. And I'd been I used to dress up in a suit every day, and corporate America. And
Yeah.
then a year later, I had a driver get hurt, and our trucking company was really new at the time, and it was like, okay, I don't have another driver. He's going to be out for 3-4 months. I've got to go drive.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting in the truck thinking, what in the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like here I am driving between, Plymouth, Utah and, Missoula, Montana or Victor, Montana. And I'm a truck driver. A year later, I'm
Yeah.
an operations manager for the whole Western United States. And now I'm sitting here driving truck. What did I do? But yeah, I learned a lot. It taught me a lot. It's always best to learn things, through experience and firsthand. And so now as I dispatch trucks and the delays and this and that and all the challenges that happen with it, I understand it. I've done it. So I'm
Yes.
better off at it, and I still run a roll-off truck quite a bit and things like that. And so through experience, I think it makes you a better manager.
The guy that dispatches our trucks, I mean, we have another guy now that was a driver, but I'll go back a little bit, but I remember when we were going to hire Jim to do the dispatch, I kind of pushed back on it, and there was a guy that was working with us at the time. His name was Barry, and Barry was like, "No, I'm telling you that Jim's the guy for the job. He's driven truck for us, and he was older at the time, and I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if if he's gonna do that job, and I was not only just wrong, like I was fucking dead wrong. I'm glad I got convinced because to your point, he knows those trucks. He knows the routes. He knows how long something should take. He knows what it feels like to get delays and all that. And so he has been like totally awesome for our business, because he did the job, right? Like you were saying, like the best advantage you had is you did go drive truck for a little bit while that guy was hurt. So now you kind of understand when somebody says, "Oh, I can't get in here," or "It's tough to back in there," or "These guys delayed us again." You're like, "Yeah, yeah, I know
Yeah.
that. I know that one."
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
We're racing to the gate at 4 o'clock in the morning in Utah to get first in line, once they open it. Oh yeah, I've done that out there.
It gives you respect for your drivers too. I mean, that driving in our business, driving is hard in general, truck driving, but it feels like it's another added layer of of difficulty sometimes on the scrap side because of the areas. I mean, a lot of these guys are just highways, right? They don't see anything but asphalt. Well, in our industry, we see every dirt road, country road,
Oh
landfill.
yeah.
Our drivers see it all, and you're pulling these quad, axle trucks and trailers into some really tight spots, and those guys have a tremendous amount of respect because, some of those guys, those trucks, they never seen anything other than just blacktop and concrete, and we got
Yeah.
these guys stuck in some spots, trying to get scrap out. So it's a whole nother deal.
Yeah. 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 I remember I don't know if you've ever been to Schnitzer's yard in Pasco
Yes,
in the
a fair amount of
spring.
times. Yeah,
They
so
they don't have
muddy.
any drainage. It's just like a pond in there. And one of my guys kept getting flat tires, and I'm like, can you please avoid that? And then I had to take a truck in there and you can't see nothing. You're just in the water,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, never mind. I understand now. Well, I'll never give you a hard time again.
Yeah, once you have to do it, then Something
Yeah.
else I thought that you guys do different, and I brought it up, before this, and I think it's worth discussing, just because when people are talking about, the hours their businesses are open and why they decided to do this, why they decided to do that. I really got a kick out of. I was on your website and cruising around, and we were looking at your hours, and you're open. Instead of being, your traditional Monday 9 to 5, half day on Saturday or whatever, you guys are Tuesday through Friday, full day, and then you're open 9 to 3 on Saturday, and you're closed Sunday and Monday. And you're like probably one of the first guys I've ever seen, one of the first companies I've ever seen that run those hours. But you kind of gave me some pretty good, some points that I like. But go ahead. What kind of made you guys go with those hours?
Well, one, we want our guys to just work like a normal 40-hour week. We don't want to stretch into too much, but we want to take care of our customers and give them a good option on Saturday to bring in scrap. And if you work Monday through Friday, it's really tough to get your scrap into a scrap yard by 5 o'clock on Friday. So you need that Saturday, and Saturday afternoon is one of our very most busy times that we have in the yard, is from about 10 a.m. Saturday till 3 p.m. because that's when everybody has a chance to bring it down to you and get it unloaded. So I think it provides a good service to the community. And, it makes a little bit of a challenge on Monday. There's oftentimes a lot still going on Mondays, but we're not open to the public. So we can still service commercial customers if we need to. But we really try and keep those Saturday hours just to take care of the peddler traffic, of people that want to bring down their scrap. And it works really great. We get, like an electrician will come in with all his wire on a Saturday because he's working 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So we get a lot of good business out of that. And so that we've just stuck to it. We've had that since we opened, and it works for the community as well as us. And I like having Monday off. I'm able to get things done and go to the bank and take care of things while places are open, and the guys seem to like it too.
I feel like there's a quality of life component there that gets attached to that, for your employees, and especially if you're, let's say, it's on the smaller side of business, and you say, and especially tough scrap times too. So 2 points to me that stick out. It allows you to work your crew a full time and not work a crazy amount of overtime, depending on how you structure your hours. But what I also like about it is, if you work, like you said, till 3 p.m. and you have a good chunk of your Saturday still open, and Sunday, you kind of can get like a real full 2 days off, right? And without trying to get guys to commit, I don't know how you guys split your Saturdays, but if you're using it as basically a full production day, then you're going to work around that 40 hours. So anybody that's out there trying to figure out schedules and saying, okay, how can I get the most juice squeezed out of the deal? I think that being able to keep your Saturdays, because those are super important on the retail side, like you mentioned. They're big days for us on Saturdays when we're open. Compared to even Mondays. Mondays are busy on the production side, busy on the driving side, bins, roll-offs, whatnot, trying to take care of, say, your manufacturing accounts. But Saturdays for retail, I mean, that's a big piece of it. But if you can allow your team to work a full week and still be able to take advantage of those Saturdays, because what we used to have to do is kind of split. Okay, well, you work this Saturday, you work that one, you work this one, kind of divide them up so that one person would have to work every Saturday. But if you're going to get Mondays off, then it's probably not too difficult of a battle to get people to work on a Saturday.
Yeah, no, some people have had frustrations with it, but overall, I think most of the guys really like it because it's a day when everything's open. You get all your other stuff done, and you still get Saturday afternoon to go hang out with the family and do whatever you need to do that day, and you get the full day Sunday, and then Monday you can kind of do all your rack killing and get things done, and like it's worked out well for us. I mean, especially when we just had the Victor yard. That yard is primarily a retail yard. There's not a lot of industry in the Bitterroot Valley.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of manufacturing that needs to be serviced on Monday. I mean, you need that Saturday, and it's worked well for us.
Good. Well, I just want to put that out there. I thought that was a unique, you just don't see a lot. I think it's worth some people, if you're trying to figure out your schedule, your guys, and how to keep a good solid crew, I feel like there's something there that, could be explored if it makes sense for your company. So here you guys are in Victor, you guys are going kind of, what what makes you decide to pull the trigger and say, okay, like I like what I'm doing. Is that what it was? You like, or you guys are just growing and you're like, what, how do you make that transition to a small little retail yard in Victor to we're going to buy a big chunk of land in Missoula and fucking go for it?
Oh, you know what? We've always wanted to go for it. You know, I
Okay.
mean, we've been looking at this for a long time. We
Okay.
never intended to stay at 1 yard. There's a lot of opportunity in Montana to grow. So I don't intend to stay at 2 yards either. I'd like to grow this business. That's why
Okay.
I'm here. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm probably stupidly ambitious in some ways. I like to work way too much and I get way too into what I'm doing and I love it.
Uh-huh.
And we're growing and there's opportunity here, that we'd like to take advantage of. And so we're waiting for the right time, and we finally had the funds and the people in place to really go after and do it. It took us a while to get there with one little yard, and it's been tough because you got one small yard funding the build and growth of a bigger yard. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the last 6 months since we've been open has been, it's been challenging, but we were ready for it, and we've tried to, really manage our cash flows and keep ourselves on track to keep this thing going. And it's worked out well. I'll tell you what, I sat up on the hill the other day looking down at the scrap yard, and it it felt pretty good because we've got a lot of inventory in the yard. We got to keep it moving, but we've kind of built up our inventory and we're moving loads and moving product, and it feels pretty good. And there's more of it to come. I mean, we're not stopping it too. If I can help it, we're going to try to grow this business.
Well, I think that was one of the things that like when I met you that I really like that I really appreciate about you is that you're a realist, but you're also like an optimist. And I think that you're optimistic about, Missoula, you're optimistic about the opportunity in our industry. And even the markets being somewhat challenging, depending on what's, your area and what's going on, there's still a certain amount of optimism required in business, especially entrepreneurship, but also like in our industry because it's so cyclical, so
Yeah,
if you're not an optimistic person, that can get just downright dirty on you,
yeah,
so when you talk about, we've always known, I think that was something that resonated with me when I was like, yeah, I've always known like what my goal was, right? I've always known that I was gonna go for it. And I think that's what I encourage other people to do in our industry is to go for it. Like see what you can do, if you're, if you just got a small business or you got a big business, whatever that is, like push to the next thing and be optimistic. Don't be stupid,
yeah,
make good decisions, or at least the best decisions you can make at the time. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think, everybody that's ever got ahead, they've just been willing to go for it and try.
yeah. Oh
Have you
yeah,
always been that way? Has that always been something that's inherent, or is it something you acquired, or is it the willingness to just go for it and push hard?
well, I don't know. I mean, I've always I've always had this entrepreneurial drive. And even when I was with Halliburton, I was more of an entrepreneur at the time, but I was always pushing to grow and go into new things and do more. And I, I don't know, at some point I decided that I needed to do something for myself so that I could kind of control it a little better. And as far as like the cyclical nature of scrap, yeah, I mean, that's what for 11 years, oil and gas is probably the only thing more
Yeah.
cyclical than scrap. So and in that business, you always had to plan ahead, right? You couldn't look at a downturn and say, okay, we got to, just shut it all down and forget it. Hey, no, you got to plan. Hey, this is going to happen, and we're gonna lean out, and this is what we're going to do. But this is going to create opportunities for growth, and it's going to change the market a little bit. And there's going to be fallout, and there's going to be this and that, and you got to plan for the next boom and the next cycle at the same time as you're staring at a downturn. So you got to kind of keep all that in the back of your mind as you're going along. So I I just I've always liked to grow, and I've always, even early in my career, I was always pushing to do more. And I took on, when I was in sales, I would take on more and more accounts, and I would push into more and more areas. And
Yeah.
I always liked it. It's a lot of fun. And my partner is very ambitious, just like I am. And he's sharp, and we've managed to get this thing to 2 yards, but there's more. And in Montana, you don't, it's not, a huge metro area. There's one, it's not completely saturated with scrap yards, but two, you have to grow creatively, because you're not going to be able to just buy $5 million worth of equipment and fund it right out the gate. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't. So you take what you really need. You got to boil it down to what you really need to make a scrapyard kind of go, and start there, and then let it grow, and then let the growth kind of dictate the equipment going forward, right? Because we can't go out and buy every machine that we'd like to,
Yeah.
and sometimes for the guys that's a little frustrating, because we don't quite
Uh-huh.
have the best or the newest or any of that,
Yeah.
and we got to
But you
be a
got to be
little creative.
committed to like what you said. I mean, you got to be committed to a certain trajectory, a certain amount of time. It's not going to happen overnight. So you can say, okay, I'm going to start with this. I'm going to make some money so I can buy that. And versus taking the money out, I tell people, I'm like, leave it in. It's amazing what you can do if you just leave it in and let it work for you, and add the next thing, the next piece of equipment, the next, sometimes it's leaving the money in so you can afford to pay somebody to help
Yeah.
you, so that you can then go look for accounts or do whatever else to grow the business. Not even necessarily leaving the money in so you can buy something. It's just leaving it there so you can afford to hire some more help to keep everything else, going. And I think there's a level of commitment there that anybody that started something small and grown it to something of decent size, that level of commitment there is this isn't an overnight deal, it's
No,
it's
no,
it's
I've heard you
years in
say
the
it. You're like,
making.
my payoff's down the road, right?
Yeah, yeah. And my payoff is just doing what I really like to do,
Yeah, yeah,
But like you, right? But there's nothing better than doing what you really like to do, and then having a good year where you can actually make some money, and
yeah,
then be able to buy some equipment and be able to kind of keep pushing. And then maybe down the road, if there's an opportunity, you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to do something different. Then we'll have that conversation. But my payoff probably is similar to yours right now, is I'm just a pusher, and I just want to just keep going and seeing how big a person can get if you're just willing to keep, putting it back into the middle of the circle, and
yeah.
see what happens. So I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask it anyways. Is, going from working for a company like Halliburton to, doing what you're doing, you had to at least get some pretty good lessons from that. And I just kind of want to hear kind of what are your top like takeaways from doing that before you actually went and opened your own facility. What'd you get? What were you able to kind of glean off of a big company like that?
Well, inventory management, right? And
Okay.
managing and not just as far as scrap and keeping that moving, but that's one part. But how much you're purchasing, right? And as far as equipment goes, and utilization rates, right? They were big on that kind of thing, right? How much were you going to get out of it? What was your return on investment to the equipment? The other one was, Halliburton was really good with people, right? And managing groups of people. And so I learned a lot about, dealing with employees, and I brought that to the company, and taking care of guys, but also, a very realistic look at how all that works, having a lot of manpower around. We learned a lot. I've had to, I, one of the things I didn't bring is, in a lot of the roles when I first came, I dealt with people that were engineers and, account managers and that type. And so when I came back and was dealing with guys that were, a little more gruff, right? In this industry, it's been fun. And
You, you get the
I grew
full
up working
spectrum.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, you get the
Yeah.
full
Full
spectrum,
spectrum.
and
Yep.
everybody rolls through that door too, and it's fun. And the sales approach is really fun in this business. I just love that you're paying them, right? You're not
Yeah.
asking for their money. You're paying them for their scrap. So the role is reversed, and it's really a fun way to buy. You're not really selling. You're buying, right? So I
Yeah.
I enjoy that because I think it I'm not forcing them to take something from me and give me money, you know? I'm
Uh-huh.
taking their stuff that they're trying to find an outlet for and handing them cash, and that's been a lot of fun, and there's a lot of service there and quality that I enjoy, and Halliburton, it was big money and big business, you know, and big dollar signs, and that was a lot of fun, and the dollar signs in this are definitely a little smaller sometimes, except for when it comes to buying big equipment, but
Yeah.
um, you know, you're kind of grinding along, but it's still the same uh, way with people and treating people well. I think that's and treating your customers good and taking good care of them. And you know, people think a salesman is kind of a sleazy guy, right? And they think that
Hmm.
you're kind of slick and all that. And it's never been my style, and that was never the style in oil and gas in oil and gas services. There was only a small pool of customers that you really dealt with, right? You know, you
Yeah.
might have 50 guys that you call on, and you better not burn all your bridges because there weren't going to be much more. You better be honest, and you better be straightforward, and you better get the job done and do it right. And if you got issues, you better be on the phone, and you better be communicating. And taking that with me from Halliburton to this has helped. You know, I mean, it's great because I know how to take care of customers, and I know how to keep a relationship going, and make sure that we, you know, continue to gain from it on both sides and being fair on both sides.
And I was
So
thinking too, on my end, you mentioned it, but your ability to think through cycles and your ability to
yeah.
weather a cycle,
Oh
because you having seen those and having been through those on the oil and gas side, um, like you said, nobody sees cycles like the energy, like the oil and
no.
gas, guys do. But there's a big advantage in this industry is people that don't, they can find a way to grow through the pain, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you're gonna get some painful years or some just not so busy years or not great years. And those are the years where you can tweak a few things. You're not gonna make say a big grand equipment purchase or a new facility, but you tweak something within your system or the way you process or the way you look at something or where you ship to, who's buying this material, and those tweaks and those changes. And that's what I wanted people to know is these are the times when you actually can really make money. And it's not necessarily doesn't show up this year, but where it shows up is when the market turns.
Yeah.
And like, and people talk about, making money when iron's 500, 600, 700 bucks a ton or whatever that is, right? The only way the only way you can capture that revenue is because you had already done all the things and put them in place. So when the market turned is when you actually were in a position to take advantage of it, right? You had your
Yeah.
facility and it was ready and you had the equipment and you were just you were able to survive the downturn. So now you're in a really solid, you took care of your people. We were partners with, a publicly traded company for a lot of years. And I used to really kind of get under my skin when, this, as soon as even a hint of a downturn, oh, we're doing layoffs. Fuck. And
Yeah.
then we do more layoffs. And it, and I've always said, like, well, what's going to happen when it turns? And then you've cut, not just the fat. It's one thing to cut the fat. I get it,
Yep.
right? You got to cut the fat. But when you start cutting into the muscle, and then when it turns, and now you wonder why you just don't have the people to do the work to keep up on the flow or whatever that looks like, you can't go hire those people back. They've found a job or they've went to work for your competitor or whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's when you feel the loss. You feel the immediate gain because you don't have the payroll. But as soon as that thing turns, you feel that loss, and
Yeah.
your money truly is made on the downturn. You just don't get to
Indeed.
touch it and feel it for a while, right? You might not see it for a couple of years, but that's when you're really going to make your money.
Yeah. And that's when you might pick up some really good people too, because
A
somebody
hundred
else will let them
percent.
go. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
opportunity in that, you know,
exactly. Yep,
because they get that big
exactly.
mentality and
Yeah.
let guys go that shouldn't get let go, and you can go pick them up. You know, if you can keep
Well,
jobs and keep grinding, you can it's a good opportunity all in itself.
So you guys haul a lot of your own material, it looks like, right? You guys own your own trucks?
We, yeah,
A couple trucks?
we've couple trucks, but we've been doing more on the brokering side. I mean,
Yeah,
we just schedule them out, through truckstop.com or whatever, and
yeah,
run trucks out. And we've had a lot of success with that because as we get into these big events, and we go and bail up 500 tons and need to just move it right now.
yeah.
That's seemed to have been better, and it's getting more and more available right now as this market kind of the trucking side, it's definitely
Drags,
down.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
feel it, and the rates are down and everything. So we found a lot of opportunity there right now. We've gotten really good. I think one of the things that having our own trucks has taught us is how to better broker trucks, right? And
yeah.
how to find more trucks, because before we had them, it was really tough. We didn't quite know what we were doing and how to market those trucks out there. And now we've got it down pat. The only struggle is still on the finding broker trucks to haul like prepared iron, put it up
Yeah.
sideboards is still. I don't think the market's still bad enough yet where guys are, there are some. Obviously, we have some, but a lot of guys
Uh-huh.
aren't willing to throw up a sideboard kit for you. But
No,
we're getting. I think we're going to approach that market again.
I
Where
always
we
thought,
can.
if a guy, a couple thoughts on it, but if a guy just went out and bought the trailers, and then you
Yeah.
had like power unit guys said, hey, like you can run my trailer, I'll load it, and then figured out a deal to make them so they could then run their truck, your trailer, so they weren't as concerned about, beating up the decks on their trailer, loading,
Yeah.
prepared iron. And then, you're out the cost of the trailer, but you also have, some sort of guarantee, someone that could move your material. But I always, my biggest thing on the transport side, especially if you guys are when you're just starting, getting going, is your ability to control your transportation. Like it's
Oh
just
yeah.
such a big thing. And then as you grow, let's say you do get those big events, a 500-ton job or whatever, then of course you're not gonna be able to, put enough trucks to move 500-ton in a week or a couple of days and get them all out. Then you do need that. But it's just your ability to kind of break down the door initially and get everything going. Is just your ability to transport and kind of move your own material and understand that process. So you can walk into an account and say, yeah, we'll figure out the trucks, we'll get them out, we'll get the material out. And then but it's more on the receiving side that we've really said own your transport, just because
Yes.
that's going to allow you to handle your customers and take care of your customers, at your pace, at your level of service that you want to be at. And I said that you've got to figure out how to fold that into your program if you're going when you start getting going, because that's just such an imperative piece, in my opinion.
You when I came and saw you, you told me get get more roll offs, get into that side, control that intake side. And we've done that. We went out and got, we had a small roll off because what we did was mostly residential and small stuff. But we went out
Mm-hmm.
and bought a big roll off truck, and it has in Missoula, it has paid dividends this year. I mean, a lot of this steel that I've brought in, has come from that roll off truck and those bins, and that has been a huge help to us in Missoula. Excuse me. So I wanted to give you credit for that because you pushed me on that, and and we went back, and it's not the prettiest truck in the world. We don't have the capital to buy a $300,000 roll off truck brand new off the lot, but we found one with low miles that was older, and man, it's been a great truck, and we
It goes
can
back
haul
to your
whatever we need
mantra,
to.
back to what you were saying earlier. You got to start where you can start, wherever that
Yeah.
is, right? Because like the old saying is, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, slide. Like
Yeah.
whatever you got to do to move forward, that's
Yeah.
what you do. And then you'll get to the point where you then can run. But if you can't, then you got to figure out where you can go, but wherever you can push forward. And so, I think that was just something that was always beat into my head from my dad, so I can't even claim it as an original idea. But he must have beat it in there enough for me to be like, okay, I'll keep passing on the info, because he's like, man, you have to control you have got to, at least the very least, your inbound, and then work towards the outbound side. And that was what changed our business in general, is our ability to, drop bins, drop roll-offs, capture some of that industrial scrap, that material that's being generated on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, so that when you do have, say, a lull in the pricing and the retail isn't as busy, you can still have some flow to keep that baler you bought busy, or to keep whatever equipment you have running, and kind of help keep the bills paid. And so, well, I'm glad that's worked out for you.
Yeah, you said baler. It's funny, so for the first couple years, we just brought in somebody from outside. It was Rosen Brothers, who were really good at baling up here in Montana. These guys were excellent at mobile baling, right? That's all they did at the time. And they had a shear and stuff, but they were really good at mobile baling. And then they told us they were going to retire. So we thought, man, we got to get a baler, because we need to control that's our cash flow. You know what I mean? As that steel stacks up, we're just going to be buying and not selling, and we'll be in trouble. So we bought an overbuilt, because that's what Rosen Brothers had. But we didn't know it at the time, because there's things you're never going to know, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to learn from them. But we bought the original overbuilt. It was the first one. The guys, when they split away from Aljon, it was the original machine they ever built, and it was definitely on the quirky side for sure. But you know what? We learned the value of that machine, and 2 years later, we sold it and bought a brand new Aljon 580. And that's been a great thing for us. And now that machine is busy, and it's like, you look back and you go, man, how could we ever live without that machine? How do we ever, but our volume's increased, and it's allowed us to go out and do mobile baling services, and kind of spread out a little bit, and keep our guys busy. We love to do it more in the wintertime when things slow up. That's our favorite time to get out there and do more mobile baling, but we do it throughout the year. And it's just that those small steps forward, right? Hey, we couldn't afford 500,000 at the time to buy a brand new one. The bank wouldn't give us the money,
Yeah.
But
But
as we worked toward it, we got there. And that machine's been great. And now it's like, okay, let's get that paid off, and then we need to buy a second one, so we can have two balers, right? And it's like, we got to keep working that way, and we're not looking back, and we don't let the grass grow under our feet out here. We're going forward.
Somebody asked me a while back, I don't know, 6 months ago or a year ago, I don't remember, and they said, if you could buy one piece of ferrous equipment, right, what would you buy? Car crusher, shear. I said, what's my budget? I said, I just want to know what my budget is first, and then I'll tell you the answer. And they're like, everything at the time was like, say around 500 grand. And I said, that's it. Like, it's such an easy call for me, right? After having been through that process. And I said, I'd buy a mobile baler. And they're like, why? And I said, well, because you can bale all your tin, your white goods. You can make number one, number two bundles, depending on where you're at. If you've got buyers for number one, number two bundles, you can bale at your facility. You can bale at somebody else's facility. So that mobility is huge. You can bale non-ferrous, not all packages, but most packages of non-ferrous. So if you don't have a non-ferrous baler, you can bale your coppers, you can bale aluminum sheet, you can bale about most anything, and make a decent enough package that you can get a truck or something up to weight, so you can move your non-ferrous. And I was like, that's probably one of those decisions for me that I would be like, yeah, that's exactly what I would buy for my first processing piece, because it's just kind of such a jack of all trades. Yeah, it's nice to be able to have a shear. It's nice to be able to shear iron, but that mobile baler, that mobility and that ability to kind of just be kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will, is bar none the piece. And I don't know whether they took the advice or not, but that was what I told them.
We're keeping our eyes looking on we've got a Genesis shear that we got our heavier iron with, but we keep looking at those vertical shears, and possibly a smaller, more mobile unit of one of those, right? That you can still kind of get on a truck. I don't know how big a truck you need, depending on weight, but that you can still move it around, because in this market, it's your transportation is tough, right? I mean,
it is.
yard to yard, it's going to be a minimum of 100 miles, right? So it's just tough to
Well, every
truck,
time you handle
you
it,
know?
right? So you
Yep.
truck it, you unprepared, you load it, then you dump it, and you reload it, you shear it. I mean, you start counting those up, and anytime you can get it processed wherever you're at, even close enough, as far as getting it mill ready, shredder ready, wherever, whatever you're going with it, is gonna, depend on your volume, obviously, but it's gonna
Yeah.
put you in a better position. And the other reason I told them I like a baler versus say a car crusher, which we have, a bunch of car crushers as well, is your ability to find transportation outside, crush cars versus bales.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
car crusher is going to be more efficient for you, as far as, tons per day out, but it doesn't do you any good if you can't find anybody to haul crushed cars, And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I think, but going back to it, just your ability to process on site, be efficient about your processing is going to reduce your handles, which then eventually it's kind of hidden money. You don't really see it, but it's there. It's time, it's effort, it's more equipment to get that through the system. And so, I mean, I could see why you guys would be looking at those. So, what does the future hold for modern? I mean, you had to tell me like exact locations, but it's more locations. Obviously, you guys like Montana area, you like other areas, just whatever
Yeah.
makes the most sense.
Montana is definitely where, I think we have the most market knowledge, and there's enough opportunity around us that we see right now that, if I had a bag full of money, I can see, at least 4 to 5 yards that I could open and go make money.
Yeah,
So I think over the next few years we're going to try to expand our footprint, but we've got to just stay capital disciplined for now and
yeah,
make this yard in Missoula really start to pay. I told my wife the other day, I said, I'll take a breath next spring. I said, oh, I'll go ahead and breathe a little easier when spring comes around. I said, we've been open
yeah,
6 months and yeah, we're doing good. But I said, we got to get through winter. Pricing doesn't look all that strong headed into 2025. It doesn't look like a real rosy year ahead.
yeah,
So I said, we're gonna sit here and make this thing go. And then, in over the next few years, we'll start looking at more opportunities across the state of Montana. I don't see us, jumping across state lines very quickly, but I do see us continuing the growth here. There's a lot of opportunity. It's not the big opportunity that a lot of yard people look at, but I think there's a niche there that we can take advantage of here.
yeah.
You
One,
know?
you liking what you're doing, right?
Oh, I
That's
love it.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, man. Well, I just thank you again for taking the time out. I appreciate it. I know you guys you're more than your hands full over there. And like I said, the power of social media has been awesome. It's been great for me being able to connect with guys like you. And I have no doubt there will be some opportunity for us to do some business here before too long.
Yeah, you need to come out and take a look
I'm
and
gonna
come
come
see
visit
us.
you. I'm gonna come see you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate it, Phil.
I appreciate it, and thanks I've learned a lot from your podcast, and I appreciate you
Thank
doing it.
you.
I listen to them. The Bulls versus Bears has been a great addition over the years, and it helps us look at it. I mean, a lot of the things are known, but I appreciate the discussion,
Yeah.
and looking at the markets, and you do a good job, and
Chad
and
does it
you're very
really.
open. I appreciate your willingness to just put yourself out there and not being kind of tight-lipped. I think for too long people just kind of keep everything to themselves, but I
Yeah.
appreciate your outlook. It's great.
Well, thank you. And Chad does an awesome job in that Bulls versus Bears. He's a wealth of knowledge on the Ferris
Yeah.
side. I mean, he breaks the markets down in layman's terms for even a dummy like me to understand.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do this podcast A because I love it and I like talking to people, but B because I learn a lot, right? So I'm just hopeful that any knowledge I can pass on, it's probably been passed on to me from somebody else. So I mean, we should all be trying to help each other however we can. And so that's where it comes from for me. It's like so many people have helped me along the line in my career. It's like I almost feel obligated to give back if I, just to whatever I can. So thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and we'll stay in touch and
All right.
and keep pushing over there.
We will. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
Take care.